Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show again. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is September the 7th. Lots going on and this music will be our response.
Hey, we've got a problem here.
To the cabal, to the Illuminati, to the bloodline families, to the people in the military with their badges of dishonour. If you think you can continue to control this planet and control the people, here's our message. Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams and tonight is September the 7th. I hope you all sang along to the last song and told them what they think, we think of them. Because there's a lot of fun and games going on. It doesn't need me to tell you that. Maybe I can fill in some pieces behind the scenes, which I will do. And there will be some intel tonight. So we'll have the usual full show and hopefully some humour along the way to lighten things up, and we're also riding the storm out. It's expected to hit this region in the next 48 hours, only it's going to get ugly, there's no question of that, but we'll ride it out. And we'll turn around and tell them F you. I'll have more details on that later on. Right, let's get into the usual stuff. And the email for the show, truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. So if you want to pass some comments, if you want to ask some questions for the show, or if you want to join the MeWe, send an email there. If you want to come on the An Evening with Thomas show, send an email to there also with some topics you want to discuss, maybe 8 or 10 topics depending on how you want to go, and 4 songs of your own choice, and send it to the truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. and the link for the show is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881. Now we have an articles website, which is expanding by the week, and it's called thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org, and the bigger shows, some people keep asking me about them, are all on that website also. We have a Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity. For those of you who despise Facebook, we have a social media alternative without the spying and the privacy issues and all the other fun and games that Facebook has, and it's called MeWe.com. Where are we next? The People's Club donation. Once the clowns are gone, that will be funded. But we need to keep the donations up to cover the corporate costs, as it were. As yet, none of the people involved in it have been paid a single cent. All the funds have gone for this show, and also the running of to keep the corporation going. So that's at thepeoplesclub.org. Where do we start? Let's go into some news. There's some fairly extensive chunks of intel. That'll be in the second hour. Not as much in the way of op-eds tonight. There's op-eds contained within the intel, so we're also going to be covering a piece written by Kevin Annett. I'm hoping to get this through this in this hour, so we can concentrate on the intel and some of the other fun games that is going on. Right, let's get into the news. And First things first is Lyle Jeffs, a leader of the polygamous Mormon sect. This group is often overlooked when compared to others, but that particular group is rather nasty. It involves a lot of child trafficking, a lot of child sexual abuse, and a lot of incestual abuse also. It's par for the course there, all in the name of whatever lord that they operate under. Anyway, the leader of the Mormon sect has been arrested after nearly a year on the run. The FBI in Salt Lake City it says that Mr. Jeffs had been arrested in South Dakota. He fled house arrest last year while awaiting trial with other sect leaders for alleged food stamp fraud and money laundering. It's funny how they pull them in on that and ignore all the other atrocities that particular church gets up to. Anyway, the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, according to the Mormon Church, is a breakaway sect. Actually, it's not. It's all part of the same group. They're lying again. Mr. Jeffs is the brother of Warren Jeffs, a former Church of Latter-day Saints leader who in 2011 received a life sentence for sexually assaulting two underage followers he took as brides. Yes, that's how they operate. The Mormon Church, officially called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, was founded in America by Joseph Smith in 1830 and now has 14 million members. A couple of pointers. The Mormons believe their church is a restoration of the church as conceived by Jesus, and that the other Christian churches have gone astray. Our church is better than your church, really. Allegedly, the Fundamentalist Church of the Latter-day Saints split from the mainstream Mormonism after it banned polygamy in 1890 amid increasingly punitive laws. Its members see polygamy as necessary for reaping maximum reward in the afterlife. Really sounds like the Muslims, with loads of virgins, all that lot. Of course, Utah was not allowed to be a member of one of the American states until it banned polygamy. It was blocked from joining for a few decades because of that particular ruling, and this is why there was this split. Nothing to do with anything else. It's just a shell corporation within the main corporation. Anyway, Mr. Trump has been kind of busy this week, and fair chunks of it rather good from what I see. And he signed an executive order requiring a review of environmental protections given to lands owned by the federal government. Oops. Hope you all grasped that. Think on it. The order aims to shrink the borders of national monuments created by previous presidents, which Mr. Trump called an egregious abuse of federal power. Unlike national parks, which require an act of Congress, national monuments can be created by a presidential directive. Right. People messaging me while the show's going on. Oh well. However, a president does not currently have the right to abolish a monument. That may be a separate issue. Think about that as well. The White House intends to shrink the borders of existing national monuments that have drawn controversy from Republican lawmakers and the mining industry. Environmentalists fear this order will unleash a wave of new gas and oil extraction, which was a Trump campaign promise. it directs the Department of Interior to examine all lands designated as national monuments since 1996. So that can be looked at in two ways. Time will tell. Removing the federal power, or for the benefit of oil. Time will tell. Where are we next? India. This is something we ought to be watching. I warned of it a number of months back. We ought to watch it here closely, because they'll use other countries as guinea pigs to then roll it out in the bigger countries if there's not much blowback to it. Now, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and his audacious attempt to crack down, allegedly, on the scourge of black money had failed. The surprise cancellation of 86% of the country's currency has caused huge disruption. At one point it seemed the entire 1.2 billion population of the world's 7th biggest economy had joined a giant bank queue. Sound familiar? It should do. But this was much more than an issue of inconvenience, as this time everyone was affected. Virtually all transactions in India are conducted in cash, not credit. And with the cancellation of 86% of the currency, all businesses have stalled and all lives are disrupted. There's lots of people now who barely have the money to buy food. And one particular spokesman said, "We never expected that we would be reduced to becoming destitute in this manner. We never expected our children to go hungry. They told us to deposit our old money." Yeah, right. So I had given the bank everything I had, and now they're not giving me anything back. This is what they were planning with their Amero and all the other bullshit rainbow notes and treasury notes. Give us all your old money, we're going to give you new money. Except they're slow in giving it out because the new money is not valid. So they've just collected the money off the entire population of India and given them nothing back. Now, it's horrific, but don't for 1 minute don't think they can pull it. They can not attempt to pull it off here or in a major European country. It's largely worked there. That's something we all have to be aware of. I keep warning of this. Cash, silver and gold, you can have your own security. Credit card can be cancelled overnight and all the balance on it removed and the debt called in overnight. A debit card, same thing. If they zero out your account, you've got no control. Yes, you can go and argue with the bank and this and that takes weeks, months. Even then, you don't always get it back. I had £1,800, which is at the time $2,700, stolen out of my account in England while I was living in Orlando. They said I took it. I said, I used the ATM from 4,300 miles away. Really? I said, funny enough, I haven't even got the debit card. I didn't get it back. And this is something we have to be aware of. With cash, you control your life. With silver, with gold, you also can control it, because you can swap it for cash. This is why they want the cashless society. Now, don't get me wrong, a cashless society would work rather well, but not with them in control. Each and every one of you that listens to this show is classed as a terrorist, because you're campaigning against the government or against the system. So they'll just press delete, and there goes your whole account. So we're a long, long way from a cash gaining trust out of the new people that take over from the cabal. Way down the line before we even consider giving up cash. Makes the control in your hands. So if you've got bundles stuck in banks, you may need to take bundles out and hide it safe. That way you're in control. That's if the bundles of money is still in the bank, because that's debatable. The UN, Russian President Vladimir Putin will not attend this month's United Nations General Assembly in New York. We quoted a spokesman saying last Saturday the US President Donald Trump, a frequent critic of the UN, will seek to gather global support for reforming the world body when he hosts the event in the UN headquarters in New York on September the 18th. That's if Hurricane Irma's cleared out by then. But it appears Mr. Putin's not going. He doesn't appear to believe in the UN, and neither does Mr. Trump. I will have more news on the UN in the Intel. The White House musical chairs continues again. It seems someone's going every week now. President Trump's longtime aide and head of Oval Office operations, Keith Schiller, is leaving the White House and Washington, confirmed by CBS News, according to two sources familiar with the situation. Schiller plans to relocate to Florida. Really? Financial considerations and some friction with the Chief of Staff John Kelly are at the heart of the decision. The precise timing of Schiller's departure, Schiller's List, all very German, isn't it? Müller, Hess, on it goes. But Mr. Schiller has informed Mr. Trump of his planned departure. Schiller is one of Trump's closest friends among his employees, and their relationship long predates Mr. Trump's candidacy. Now, Mr. Schiller had universal walk-in privileges to the Oval Office before Mr. John Kelly arrived, and it was customary for Schiller to meet Mr. Trump at the residence each morning and walk with him to the Oval Office. And he also frequently travelled with Mr. Trump as well. But it appears Mr. John Kelly, the Chief of Staff, has stopped that, and so Mr. Schiller has decided to spit his dummy out and head to Florida. Where are we? I'll leave that one till the last. Let's talk about Mein Führer, Angela Merkel. Even the Germans don't like her now. She was met with loud boos and calls to get out of Germany during her current election campaign. Stops in eastern German towns of Torgau and Finsterwald. I hope I said that right. And this comes just a day after she was hit with a tomato as a rally. I hope it's full in the kipper. For the Americans, that's in the face, by the way. Kipper is a British term, I keep forgetting that. Merkel, who is touring Germany as part of her and her centre-right Christian Democratic Union Party re-election bid, that's a mouthful in itself, is having a rough start in eastern Germany, where the Chancellor actually grew up herself. And her rally in the town of Torgau in Lower Saxony on Wednesday was visited by demonstrators from the Alternative for Germany group and the National Democratic Party, who attempted to derail her 30-minute speech focused on tax policy, fight against terrorism and education. Yeah, right. The demonstrators chanted "Nation's traitor, get out," and calling to vote her out altogether. Meanwhile, in other Nazi news, Berlin will not automatically side with the US should it face an armed conflict with North Korea, Angela Merkel has said, and she believes the North Korean crisis cannot be resolved through military means. Yes, indeed. Even a broken clock's right twice a day. Right, residents is more disdain against America, or the USA Inc. Residents of the South Korean province of Gyeongsangbuk-do, try saying that when you're drunk, have taken to the streets objecting to the local installation of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System. Think about that. Anyway, hundreds of protesters confronted police, and they showed up in front of the community's administrative building to protest the deployment of the advanced United States missile defense system in their country. The standoff occurred near the future site of the rocket launchers at the US base in Seongju, some 300 kilometers, 135 miles southeast of the capital. So basically what we have here is neither North Korea or South Korea are happy with the USA Inc. anymore, or its military. Simple solution for both countries is to follow the Kingdom of Manor blueprint. Declare your own sovereignty, and then you can remove the bases, all of them. No more interference then. No more having weapons plonked on your soil that puts you in the threat at the behest of psychopaths operating in this country. And if you do all that, you'll also have the added bonus of saving the American taxpayers some money as well. So it's win-win all round. And this will be the final news item before I get into the Kevin Anna piece. Now, this has come up before, as they've been trying it in some of the Scandinavian countries. This is from the Roosevelt Institute. Oh yeah, another controller. And they're considering giving every adult in the United States a $1,000 cash handout per month, citing it would grow the economy by $2.5 trillion by 2025. And this is the universal basic income. and this report was released last month by the left-leaning, whatever that means. Well, they had a stroke or something. Left-leaning, right-leaning. Dear me. Roosevelt Institute and the research director Marshall Steinbaum, the Nazi, Michaelis Nikiforos at Bard College Levy Institute, and Gennaro Zaziza at the University of Cassino and Southern Lazio in Italy co-authored the study. Seems we don't have any Americans to study. Oh well. The study, it was said, made economic forecasts for three proposals: a full universal basic income in which every adult gets $1,000 a month, or $12,000 a year; a partial basic income which every adult gets $500 a month, or $6,000 a year; and a child allowance in which parents get $250 a month, or $3,000 a year. The larger universal basic income, the greater the benefit to the economy, according to the report. So a 1,000 cash handout to all adults will grow the economy by 12.56% after 8 years. Current Congressional Budget Office estimates that the GDP at 19.8 trillion. The cash handout would therefore increase the GDP by 2.48 trillion. Smacks of increasing the debt ceiling to me. You put two and two together, it may sound good, but at what cost? Yes, we'd all like the $1,000 a month. One could fiercely argue we're owed way more than that per month, given what they've stolen. But this, when you consider where it comes from, Levy Institute, aka Zionists, and Roosevelt and Marshall Steinbaum, smacks of Nazi to me. Well, it's not all German sounding names are Nazi, but the ones in power are. And the $250 allowance would grow the GDP by 0.79%, and the 500 would grow by 6.5%. And these estimates are based on a universal basic income paid for by increasing the federal deficit. See where it's going now? As part of the study, the researchers also calculated the effect to the economy of paying for the cash handouts by increasing taxes. So they give it you in one hand and take it in the other. So, in that case, there would be no net benefit to the economy. Even the report states that. But we're going to have to be careful of these people coming up with all kinds of fancy schemes, offering the public money. And to be quite honest, 99.9% of America would go, great, just let's have it. But it's short-termism. The long-term damage would be felt. What will they do? Because suddenly they'll print a bundle of money, give it to the people then spend it, and it goes back to them. Remember, they own all the core pirate groups. So we end up buying stuff off them, and they keep the money. Then you know what they do with it. The worst thing that can ever happen to this country is increasing debt ceiling. Because if the worst comes to the worst, we'll never get out of it. We have to be careful of short-term gain and inducements, no matter how desperate we all are. You know, there's many of us who are in poor financial situation, and yes, that would be a godsend, but it would also end everything. They've had hundreds of years with the collateral accounts, free reign over it, which was supposed to be for humanitarian. Have they give us anything out of it? No. Do you think they'll give us anything out of it if they got a control of it again? No. So this is another way to buy the public. And because so many are in desperate financial straits, which is deliberate, because it's done by them, remember. It's them that owes the debt, not us. Well, the country's 19.6 trillion in debt, and we have to pay it back. No, not we. They can't have it, but they think they can have it both ways, always. They put the people up as collateral in 1933. That means they own the people. That means they have to pay for them. So all your utilities and your mortgage and your food is already paid for. So how do we owe debt? The simple solution is one that I mentioned a few years back, and one that was mentioned again by the lady that came on regarding Kingdom of Manna. You give every country 2 or 3, I said 2 years, they're talking about 3. 3 years GDP. That means everything everyone spends in a country on taxes, food, whatever, mortgage, all kinds of licenses and this tax and that tax and all the other little bullshit that they add on. Everything that's spent by everyone in the country is the GDP. So if you give, for argument's sake, America or Britain 3 years GDP out of the collateral accounts or the trust account, those countries don't have to collect a single cent in tax for 3 years because they already have it. So the people would notice a benefit without going stupid with large amounts of funds being handed over. It would just lead to consumerism frenzy. And people can argue that wouldn't take place. You know deep down that's exactly what would take place, and that's how they will get all the money back very, very quickly. They were talking about this 3 years ago, giving everyone $50,000 or $30,000. Forget the idiots at OPPT and all that crap, 5 billion in gold. They were talking about $25,000 or $50,000, but they controlled the accounts. Within 6 months they would have all the money back and all the accounts to boot. Because we have to start disrupting their corporations. Because while they control all the corporations, they will always control us. Because we can be given money by the trust account. But if we go and buy all the stuff from their corporations, we're just giving them the money back. So whilst it would be nice to have $1,000, himself included, extra per month, we have to stop and think, yes, that's nice, But what about the long term? For too often now we've gone short term on everything. We have to start thinking of the long term. What sort of legacy is it going to leave the children and the grandchildren? A mountain of debt? Because that's what the report tells you. It's going to increase the GDP another 2.48 trillion. And you could say, well, Thomas, it's not our debt, it's theirs. But if they control it, they'll force us to pay for it. They'll change their mind. These people are psychopaths, remember, they don't care about us. What if you just change their mind? Whether you increase it to 22 trillion, and then after 12 months of having $1,000 decide, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, and by the way, we're going to increase the taxes to pay for your $1,000 each month. It's not beyond the realms of thinking, is it? Because they've done this over and over again. I want people to think deeper on when things come out, particularly anything that's providing any sort of financial change, be it cashless, be it universal basic income. We have to read the small font, all of it, before agreeing to any of that. So this is a short account. I've been trying to read this for the last 3 weeks. Kevin Annett, who's been taken on the church and the state and the royals also in Britain, and this is about an event in England in 2011 and how easily things can be turned against you when you challenge the system. But the opening says, I wear as a badge of honour my deportation from a country of liars and cutthroats. And that was Big Bill Haywood, Labour organiser and revolutionary in 1920. Now, Kevin had an ancestor from Britain who was also an activist called Peter Annett. And it starts off, old Peter Annett would have been proud of me, I suppose, for like my free-thinking ancestor, I was also tossed into a British prison for thinking certain thoughts. This happened to Kevin in May of 2011, just a few days before he was to speak at a state-sponsored child trafficking at the annual event against child abuse rally in London's Trafalgar Square. My closest loved ones, he says, like to joke that I must be Peter's reincarnation, considering our parallel lives, and how he was jailed and pilloried in London at the age of 70 in the year 1763 for writing seditious blasphemy against the Church of England. In other words, he spoke the truth. That's what seditious blasphemy means. How little changes over time. For just like 2.5 centuries ago, a blood-stained fiction called The Crown of England and their wealthy private contractors still catch the innocent in their claws. The rule of law be damned. And here is what happened to me as I recorded the day after my imprisonment. The room is small. This is the prison now. Unventilated and foul-smelling and crammed with 10 of us. I am the only white person in there. A Malaysian mother with her 4-year-old daughter sits in one corner, sobbing uncontrollably. Incarcerated for half a day, she is one of the luckier ones. A young Turkish man called Farid had languished in there for over 3 days and isolated from his 4 children. Fareed has lived in England for 11 years, doing sweat jobs for shit wages and loyally paying his taxes, but tomorrow he'll be deported over a technicality in his work visa. There is no appeal allowed, and his children will not be allowed to accompany him. You know why? Because they are owned by the state. He registered them in England. So he has to leave and his children has to stay because they belong to the state. This is the immigration prison in Stansted Airport outside of London. The time is the early hours of May the 30th, 2011, and the net fell on me suddenly the night before as I made my way through the border control desk after disembarking from the Netherlands. After asking me why I was coming to England, a banal twit in a uniform scanned my passport through his computer and quickly looked shocked as he peered through the thick lenses at the screen. He scuttled off to speak to his supervisor, who I watched through the glass window of his office as he looked at his own computer, nodded his head and said something to his crony. Triumphantly, I guess, that as an employee of the private company Reliance Limited that runs British immigration services now, he gets extra points for jailing and deporting someone. The twit returned and informed me with a whine of condescension that my giving public lectures was unusual for a tourist, and that I was suspect, he didn't say of what, and would therefore be barred from entering England. Kevin said, "What exactly am I expected to be doing?" I asked him. "But first, you are to come this way," he motioned, ignoring my question like I hadn't said anything. We walked into a tiny holding cell, and the twit left me alone in there for half an hour, I guess to make me sweat, but when he returned I was calmly whistling an Irish melody that seemed to annoy him no end. "I bet you find your job difficult, putting people through all this," I ventured to the twit as he fiddled with his papers. Attempting a smile, he answered, No, I enjoy it actually. One meets very fascinating people in this line of work. If only you knew, I thought. The twit refused to give me his name when asked, nor could I know the name of his supervisor or even use the telephone. He also wasn't wearing a badge number, though later he made a gaffe when he donned another coat and I saw his coat number 676676. "You'll be in here tonight until we can send you back from whence you came," said the pallid twit, smiling at his pretended eloquence and gesturing to a white door. He knocked and a stern young guy answered and glared at me like I was yesterday's trash. Then I was locked in with a whole crowd of dark-skinned people. Despair stared back at me from the sad eyes of my fellow prisoners who lay or sat around the room. They were all deflated, tired and beaten. A TV was blaring mindless crap at them, so I walked over and switched it off. The young Turkish guy, whose name was Fareed, looked surprised at my action, but then he smiled at me weakly and nodded. After my obligatory finger printing and photographing, I asked the Reliance Company goon if I could have a copy of the picture since I looked pretty good, but he said no. I was locked back into the sparse room with my fellow detainees. I was told not to speak to any of them since that was against the rules. I just smiled at the goon and I ignored him. Most of the detainees didn't want to talk. It was nearly midnight by then, and like prisoners do, they had adapted to their incarceration and were mired in themselves. But Fareed was too filled with grief about being robbed of his children to settle into apathy. "I will never see them again," he says. "They will be put with other families, and then anything can happen to them. My youngest son is only a baby. Kevin remembered reading the day before how 586 children placed in the foster care system in England had somehow disappeared over the past year. Just vanished. Local child welfare officials had no explanation either, apparently. Nope, was there, didn't I? All pedos. To ride out his pain and the dull hours, Farid taught me of his life in Turkey, how he had run a small shop in Ankara until he couldn't afford the backhanders to the local cops. So in other words, he had to give part of his takings to the local police, otherwise they shut his shop down. Nice people, cops. Not. And basically he'd worked every shitty job imaginable in London since arriving to feed his growing brood of children. His eyes bore 1,000 scars, but they glowed when he spoke of his kids. Farid seemed on the verge of tears at that point, so I tried telling him some jokes, but they fell flat. So he politely shifted the topic by teaching me some Turkish words, starting with I love you. The phrase sounded like Seli Sev Yorum. He commented how the phrase might come in handy if I ever came to his country, but not if I said it to another man, of course. That's not what I hear, I replied, and he laughed uproariously. We held back the demons like that during those slow and weary hours as the other tried to sleep and didn't. The Malaysian woman sang to her daughter while the Reliance thugs stared at us through a thick pane of glass. But it felt to me like I was free, staring in at them and their little box. It all ended for me the next morning when I was taken to a plane that would fly me back to Eindhoven in the Netherlands. I said goodbye to Farid and wished him luck, and gave him a strong bear hug. The man stepped back and took my hand gently. He said, Allah, pressing his other hand against his chest and then pointing to my heart. I recalled then the last words in George Orwell's book Homage to Catalonia, in which he describes briefly meeting an Italian militiaman who, like Orwell, was fighting to defeat Franco and his fascist son during the Spanish Civil War. Orwell and the Italian couldn't speak one another's language, but they embraced and shook hands before departing in different directions for the war-ravaged front lines. Orwell never saw the Italian man again. In memory to this unknown stranger briefly taking his hand in comradeship, who had probably died, Orwell wrote a poem to him that concluded, "But the look I saw in your eyes, no power can disinherit. No bomb that ever burst shatters the crystal spirit." The night after my deportation, I stood in a crowd of singing and laughing revellers in a pub, tasting my freedom like a soothing ale, but wondering where Farid might be and grieving for him and his children in that part of me that never rests. I never felt imprisoned in jail, nor did Farid's own agony stop him from taking my hand in his and blessing me. Down the years, I've learned from so many Farids that the more they repress us, the sharper and stronger some of us get, like the sharp point of a spear. The criminals in power are afraid of us now and are striking out in fear, knowing that their time is over, be they ever so high. So be of good cheer and let this knowledge propel your body and your life to accompany your words, but never forget Farid and his children and that thing that is trying to imprison all of us in these final days of decision and revelation. Kevin Annett. You know, this is some of the criminality. There's that much. You know, you'd need multiples of shows to cover the full gamut of criminality that's going on here. The children is probably the worst one, because they're the future. They always are. Children's children are being failed for the last 150 years. In this country, anyway. In many other countries, they're being failed from day one. The minute the Europeans goose-stepped around the world and destroyed the culture. And this is why, despite all the fun and games that they throw at us, we must never give up. And so, on this week of heavy storms, we'll be riding the storm out. And like Lily Allen says, F you. We'll be back after the break. There'll be low life in the high places for not very much longer. Hi all, and welcome back to the second hour. Right, here's the juicy bits. Some of it's not too pleasant, I might add, but it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. So, we've got lots of fun and games with the storms. I will be staying where I am with a giant middle finger. Now, this storm is different in every way, and it's causing a bit of a concern for the people in the path. It's also causing concern outside, and we will find out who did it. But something from outside of here is messing with that storm. Something is producing it and also driving it. That is quite clear now. It appears in some way inverted, so much so that certain people who brainstormed it were suggesting it may be a portal. It may not be far-fetched. But we will find out who's done it, and its source, and also who conducted it. Consequences of actions will be swift and unforgiving, mark my words. Now, the damage that's done already. The island of Barbuda is 90% gone. 90% of all the structures have gone. And we will have to keep an eye out on what's contained on that island, because it smacks of Haiti to me. So, the overview of it for the issues for America itself, because this is the last battlefield. Like the movies, I know some of the European people are sick of that, but it is the final battlefield on so many levels, because of historic levels, going back many thousands of years. It's the battlefield on a financial level. It's a battlefield on a faction level. And it also has consequences for the history of these lands to fight over. Now, a lot of people around the world are not happy or kind of ridicule the fact that Americans have guns. Me personally, I don't like them. Just don't. I don't like that sort of violence. But if Americans didn't have guns, we would have lost by now. Because they would have steamrolled right through this country. But they're frightened of we the people in America, because there's that many armed. All the other countries that give up the weapons all got genocided. All of them. We didn't. And that is, in essence, part of a divine plan, if you want to call it, in a way. Because America is the battlefield, the final battlefield. We're not kowtowing to their whims. There is sufficient people in this country who are going to fight them tooth and nail. Much to their chagrin. And frustration, I might add. So they're coming up with new plans. Weather wars. Causes disruption. Can allow them to, as warned last week, about increasing the debt ceiling. That's not for the people. Oh no. That's not for the people in Texas. But you can forget that. How many homes have been built after Katrina? Very few. How many homes were built in Haiti, which happened 6 years ago? 1 home per year. 6. So they're not rebuilding it. So they need money for something else, don't they? And this is because they've got none. The country's operating on credit, based on clown Chinese elders delivering a bogus RV that will never happen. But you try telling the idiots that. 25 years trying to get the RV. That's over 500 Drake times. Sorry, Drake. 5,000 I said. It's not happening. So the country has now spent the American people's pension, emptied the American government bank money. You've got clowns called Heather Giraffe, Neil Wolfe, et al. Of OPPT trying to raid the American government treasury account. Of the Department of US Treasury and all that rubbish. We've covered that in recent shows, that there's 7 US treasuries, different names, they're just shell corporations. But the real one, which the cabal and the Federal Reserve tried to get rid of in 1924. And did. But it's open again. Like the American government. It's open again when it's safe for the people to step into it. So that treasury money has got nothing to do with birth certificates, accounts, none whatsoever. And those clowns, Giraffe et al., know that. They're paid agents. I'll cover that shortly. But this is something I need people to pay attention to. So we have all the emergency teams now in operation down the whole of the west coast, particularly the northwest, because of fires that appears to be deliberately set. all the emergency teams up there are stretched. All the emergency teams in the south, due to the deliberate act of Harvey and the skullduggery that took place after it made landfall. Let's spin it round and round. And so all the emergency teams are all stretched in the south. And now all the emergency teams down the east coast, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina and upwards, are all on ready and full alert. We have no emergency teams left. So do you get the feeling now that they're trying to do something here? You bet. When you add in that there is UN troops on our soil in at least 8 states currently, then you start to see the bigger picture. Today, they tried to push UN troops into Florida. Of course, they'll cite all the emergency teams are stretched in the other places. Again, you see the picture. Mr. Trump blocked it this morning. The UN going into Florida. This is what's ongoing here is a deliberate attempt at creating chaos. Ordo ab chao. Their own Latin use of the word. Order out of chaos. After all, that's what they're good at. That's all they've ever done. Create chaos and provide their type of order. Another version of problem, reaction, solution. So they can bring their type of order into the proceedings. We've had a 12 years in the main, a quiet 12 years in major storms, where lots of them were pushed out of harm's way or dissipated. These last two are totally different. And then you add in the other factor. It's less than a couple of months after we pulled out of the Paris Treaty on climate change, and then you see another bigger picture emerging. Of course, there's India's underwater as well. Bangladesh, 1,200 people dead. So the whole planet is turning into a weather shitstorm. Why? So they can pull off their Paris Climate Change Treaty, which has got nothing to do with climate change, nothing to do with global warming, and everything to do with the UN claiming every single country's in-ground resources now and for the future to pay for the climate change. Now do you see the picture? So you think all that's a coincidence? Neither do I. Will they prevail? No. Like everything else they've done, it's failed. But they can create chaos. And whilst we have clowns sitting twiddling thumbs and pens and scratching their balls in the Pentagon doing nothing, then chaos will continue. And the reality is the UN is trying to force a coup in this country. All the emergency teams are now stretched. So we have to bring in outside groups. Is it a coincidence today that 5,000 military were removed from Florida out of harm's way? These people are soldiers. They're used to being in harm's way. So why are they being airlifted out and the people being left? Or is that part of the overall plan? We'll soon find out. The Rothschilds group is basically at the end, and they're throwing all kinds to stay in control. And what they, them and others, the Soros group, not necessarily Mr. Soros, because as far as I'm concerned he died last November, and nothing is going to change my mind on that. But the representatives of the Soros group, he's just the front puppet. Mr. Former melted candle face. So they're trying to goad we the people into a civil war. And when that happens, they can go and print money. Clever, isn't it? They can then print money to cover it, the civil war, and roll out the rogue military. My advice is to stay calm. Do not give to named charities. They are stealing all that as well. All of them. I don't care whether you think Salvation Army is better, or Goodwill, or Humanity, or this and Humanity that. They're all part of the cabal. All the money goes into cabal banks that are now bankrupt, and it keeps them running. None of it goes to the people. And as for that demonic bunch of shits called the Red Cross, they should be run out of town. There was a story in Texas. The Red Cross had put up some sort of shelter and ran it like a concentration camp. No hot food, no water. People were getting one meal a day. And so a rather caring person decided that he would get in his plane and fly 40 burger meals, hot meals, and cold drinks for the people in the camp. The Red Cross took it off them and put them all in the cooler. Says only they are allowed to give it out. This is what we're dealing with, and it's time people got real to it. Cut off all funds to charities. I don't care whether it's Red Cross, the Heart Foundation, the St. Jude's, they're all in on it. The cancer societies are one of the worst, all of them. As all of them know, we've had a cancer cure since 1927. And they just pluck the strings and pluck your wallet. These people are pirates. So recently there was a meeting at Jackson Hole. I wish they'd go in another hole and never come out, my opinion. And a number of issues were raised as the financial panic reaches a climax. They have nowhere to go. So what they were doing in the Jackson Hole meeting was trying to intimidate foreign dignitaries into making decisions in their favour. Cabal tactics again, threatening people. But you know what? That failed also. It's actually backfired on them. Because now we've got a few more to add to the ever-expanding group not following their orders anymore. do next? Right, this next bit is a bit of a mixed bag. Mr. Sino reared his ugly head again. Remember him? Like a 4-year loop. He of the Philippines, who thinks he's the M1, amongst other things. He, along with the clown known as Neil Keaton, who may not be around anymore, rumour has it, and at least 72 others who all think they're the M1. So Mr. Sino announces himself as the King of Kings. Really, good luck with that, lad. Says in his speech, this is Mr. Sino, that the UN, listen to this closely, is not only for humans, a bit like that clown over humans don't have a right to water. The UN is not only for humans, but angels, jinns, demons and devils as well. Again, good luck with that, lad. Nice little collection there. Fallen angels, jinns, shadow people, demons and devils. That's what's already in the UN. We're actually trying to get humans in there, but maybe we might get some better decisions. So Mr. Sino is connected to Swiss Indo, along with the smiling assassin known as Cindy K. Courier. Yes, the 4-year loop returns again. He's also likely attached with Miss Karen Hughes. Remember her? I'd rather not, personally. Well, as Sino is connected through the World Bank, same as Miss Hughes, who was denying was still working for the World Bank when we had emails on World Bank paper not so long ago. So she's a fat liar. She's fat something else, but she's a fat liar as well. Anyway, these people, all of them, are international fraudsters. Courier, Hughes, Sino. And they own nothing. They have nothing and can produce nothing, which is a bit like the Chinese elders, really. You may also see the term God, Sky, Earth Kingdom. Again, these are the same people and the same bullshitters. Swiss Indo, for those who don't know, are traffickers on and off world, including children. Nice people. Not. Next news item. You'll remember me mentioning at least twice about an invasion in the Philippines. Well, it's become rather clear what that intention was. Mr. Sino was also involved in that, as that was a full-scale military invasion. ISIS alone are not capable without support from a large company stroke country. And the invasion was ordered by President Obama. Oops. And they're looking for the Marcos wealth. There's a lot of wealth over there, and it's not just the Marcos wealth either, or what's known as the Marcos wealth, but it actually all belongs to the people. So that has ramped up again over there, and it's more of the cabal fun and games to oust Mr. Duterte and insert another Marcos into the picture. So another one of their puppets. The former Marcos was a cabal agent. Now, we heard about North Korea this week, about 2 earthquakes, except they weren't. Someone fired 2 weapons at North Korea this week, because real earthquakes do not happen at a depth of 0 and 1 kilometre. That's something that's landed. And yet the media stays completely silent. Earthquakes happen below. Way below. So the 2 that were recorded were at 0, in other words on ground, and 1 kilometre. So it was not the HAARP machine, which is 10 kilometres for those that don't know. Lots of fun and games this week surrounding the now legendary and all-round comedic group known as the Chinese Elders. They are desperately searching for a way back into the game and also fending off irate cabal agents and puppets for not delivering the golden egg known as the RV. Oh, the irony of that. So there's a lot of irate cabal people gunning for the Chinese Elders now. The real reason is they're angry at themselves for their own stupidity. They've been told for numbers of years now they will never ever deliver it. They were told on this show and previous for the last 4 years. Now, we mentioned earlier about Heather Giraffe. Of course, now she's out of jail, if she ever went there. That's debatable. What people don't know, or very few will, is Heather Giraffe worked as the IMF lead bank inspector. Oops. She also worked with Jacob Rothschild. Again, oops. So, if anyone's got any doubts, there's your clarification of how deep his or her ties go to the central banks. The reason I say his, because there's strong rumours that both Heather Giraffe and Danny or Daniel Arnold McKenney of OPT, PT, are both males. Time will tell. Bit like all getting very Patty Brassard, isn't it? Anyway, Giraffe, whether she's male or female, has now declared herself as the Queen of Africa. So we have the King of Kings, Mr. Sino, and Miss Giraffe, now Queen of Africa. Really? Wonder what the African people think of that. Yeah. But isn't it funny how all these people on the alternative media have all these self-appointed titles, none of which has any validity? King of Kings, M1s, Queen of Africa, Pindars, bogus judges. Yes, indeed. Heads of state. All of them pretending to represent the people. when they're all representing their own pocket and their own agendas and their own little factions. All of them. I think it's time the alternative media shut those people down altogether. We don't need them. We don't need their distraction, lies, distortion, drama. Because they all cause drama. Have you noticed that? Each and every one of them causes drama. Why? Because it distracts you away from what's really going on. That's how trolls work. They'll see a valid post where people are getting the meaning of it, and they'll throw a spanner in the works by getting nasty with people out of the blue, and then the arguments ensue where it goes backwards and forwards and people forget what the title of the piece was about. But the couriers, the giraffes, the Kennys, Lisa Harrison, all create drama. Stay away from it. We don't need it. Couple of things to think of. You know, I like to get people pondering. There's been some talk recently, both in terms of technological achievement and also for earth changes, about floating cities. And because of the programming or the steering of the narrative and the way they are depicted, people always think they're above the ground. What if they're not? I can hear the gears ticking over now. What if those floating cities are underwater and not above the surface? Something to ponder on. Here's a question you can all answer. Again, something that came to me. This kind of tells you how my brain works. It never switches off. But can clones be arrested? Do we have any laws on clones? Think about that one. It might not be as silly as it sounds. And the last piece is from Genesis. No, not the baldy Phil Collins type. This is the biblical type. I did have the I think it was Genesis 11, 5 through 7, for those of you who like to check up on it. But these are the words. But the Lord, that's Anu, came down to the city and the tower, that's Babel, the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people, speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. The Lord said, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. See, it's all there. So basically, Anu visited, so the people were getting on. They all spoke the same language. They were using their creative and creative skills and building. And this became a concern to the Lord Anu as a threat. So they decided to land on Earth and change the languages so that we will not understand each other. Now you know why I said the biggest destruction of man was the spoken word, along with the written word, the word magic and the spelling. It often confused me as a child watching the TV. You don't see those types of government, country-led meetings as much now. They're all behind closed doors and all secretive. We used to see whole forums and halls with the names of the people from the different countries, along with a plethora of translators. And it always freaked me out. What if the translator got it wrong? We could end up with World War III. You know, there's always the difficulty with languages. Is that, you know, certain people, particularly some of the tribal people, want to protect their language, which has been eroded by the decade. People think it's important to keep that language. But when you realise that they introduced all the languages so that we couldn't understand each other, and when people don't understand each other, they have a mistrust. It's always the way. And a fear. Again, that's part of the conditioning and the use of culture, which I mentioned recently. Culture divides because there is no culture. It's only what they have infused as a program. So when people say, this is the American way, or this is the British way, they're not realising that that's all been structured by the control system to do different things at different times. None of it's our culture. We don't have a culture, we just are. We don't have labels, again, we just are. I am, we are. Labels, languages, cultures, they're all divide and conquer. All of them. And if we're going to go forward as a species, no matter which language they choose, I know most of us would pick English. We need a common language, because it will erode the barriers between the people. No more hiding behind translators. You know, remember the almost laughable comedic videos straight after September the 11th, with some translator narrating Osama bin Laden. He could have been saying anything. We wouldn't know. There's the danger. That's how you then create a whole meme and a theme and a program to the populace, because it's based on what that has been said. But that, what has been said, is a complete distortion. You know, you got the famous one, Iran threatening to blow Israel out of the water. And and Israel and America declaring that as their policy. No, that was a response to being attacked. If you attack us, we will blow you out of the water. Which is fair enough. There's no reason to attack Iran. They've not invaded any countries, have they? Ever, as far as I can remember. I may be wrong on that, but certainly not the last few hundred years, if ever. But suddenly they're the axis of evil. Or maybe it's just because they haven't got a Rothschild's bank. A bit like North Korea. A bit like Venezuela. There's all chaos going on in Venezuela. A bit like Cuba. So we put embargoes on them until they kowtow to the Rothschilds. No one's kowtowing to them anymore, apart from the clowns with the badges of dishonour. That's all. Once they see sense, then the Rothschilds are finished. Right, that's the end of the intel and the op-ed. This is, I thought I would do something with music, as I often do, but this one's a bit longer, because the song is near 10 minutes long, or the first one is, and it kind of plays into the way people are feeling at the moment. People are seeing the illusion full. People are going batshit crazy all around. Both in front of you, and let me assure you, those behind the scenes are going batshit crazy as well. Completely. So I'm going to play two songs, and I'm going to give some background into them. On the video, on the opening of the first song, it has an etymology of the word illusion. And the etymology is to mock, the act of deceiving, the act of deception, a misleading image presented to the vision, perception of something objectively existing in a way as to cause misinterpretation to the actual nature. That's at the opening. Now the name of the song also has an etymology. That's about halfway through it, for those of you watching on the video. And it's to what many who listen to this show are now feeling or experiencing. The etymology says to remove customary environment or associations. The second meaning is to arouse mutual enmity or indifference where there had formerly been love, affection or friendliness. And the third meaning of it implies the development of indifference or hostility with consequent separation or divorcement. Now the first meaning, remove from customary environment, plays into the organic-inorganic aspect of nature, where many of you have felt you don't belong here, feel this world is wrong, upside down or backward, and also plays into the two-world separation, which is now transpiring. The second word, meaning enmity and indifference instead of love, affection and friendliness. We have been driven into a world of hate, violence, intolerance and greed, and this feels inherently wrong to all of us who listen to this show. And third, development of indifference or hostility of separation, and many fear the change or the change is coming, and this is where the term Stockholm Syndrome comes in, where people gain love of the abusers as a safety and comfort zone because we fear what is outside of it. In reality, we fear what is inside of us, not outside. Too many of us have tolerated abusive relationships or vampiric friends, losing our time and energy because we feel it's all we have, or worse, all we deserve. This plays into the damaging victimhood mode all of us have experienced and played a role in our lives. We are not good enough. Well, stuff that, because actually we are. Everything you ever wanted or wanted to be is on the other side of fear. Many will resonate with this song in a relationship way, but all will resonate with it on a soul level. This song is called Estranged, and the second song is the answer to it and all our problems.
When you're talking to yourself and nobody's home.
Hi all, and welcome back to the final hour this evening. A longer music break. Well, I felt it was the right time because people are feeling estranged. This is a strange world, full of what is relatively a small amount of psychopaths dictating our life, controlling our life, controlling our destiny in many ways. But they're not going to prevail. Those with common sense have seen through the illusion. Many of the cabal have stepped down. Many of the cabal are now helping us. This is a long game. It's been a long game. 16,500 years of tyrannous control. Maybe not for the first few decades. They brought all kinds of toys and inventions that ultimately were just seducements. It's like I mentioned in the first hour regarding this universal basic income. We can't just accept it and not see the pitfalls. Because if it comes from them, it will have pitfalls. If it comes from the trust and they've been removed, then that's a different ball game altogether. But this next piece is for the cabal only, and I know you're listening. Because whether you like the truth or you don't, and it appears throughout your life, truth to you has no meaning. It's just an order, and you accept their truth, not ours. But they have had control, as I mentioned earlier, of the trust, the world trust, for many, many years. So they had the ball. They had access to all the funds for nearly a millennia. And what did they do with it? Fight. They had everything. But it was not them who wanted the fighting. No, that came from afar. The Lord. And they lost control of the accounts in 2007. And this is why the world is in financial stranglehold at the moment, because none of it is going to be released until they see sense, or somebody gets angry and removes them. We as sovereigns are not allowed to attack, and you can call that a silly rule, but it's cosmic law. Have they acted in kind? Absolutely not. The dark don't know law. They think they are law, except they're not. They might have been for a long time, but they're not no more. But they're still doing this. Yes, I've said they can still create chaos, but ultimately they've lost. And I know some people may find that hard to believe, and I understand that. But for those who know the bigger picture, they've lost. We know they've lost, and they do. They're clinging on with any desperate measure to try and facilitate or leverage some sort of change. It won't work. They won't get their RV, which is a bailout for them, nothing to do with us, with bogus currencies, Zims, Dings, Dangs, Dongs, and all, whatever else you want to call it. All bullshit. Cryptocurrency was shut down last week, and everyone was in uproar. Not me. Warned about that 3-4 years ago when it first came out. It's another scam. Again, it's not for the people's benefit, it's for theirs. I told you about the Hawaii situation, where the US Inc. military made the Hawaiians give up all the US Federal Reserve dollars. $220 million of it, and decided in case Japan raided again they would burn it all. Yeah, right, pull the other one. No, they absconded with all those funds so they can pull off their Fourth Reich, which is America. I remember getting a lot of abuse for that on a forum 10 years ago. Those people are still around. I don't think they'll be giving me abuse now, because it's right in your face. So the Rothschilds lost control. It was the 5th year anniversary of their control of anything, which most of which was an illusion anyway. So here we are 5 years on, and yet we still have clowns in the military kowtowing to them like they're gods. Well, they're not ours, and we're the people who pay you, not them. So every idiot thinks today's the day we're going to get the RV, and every time it fails. What's the saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What happens if you fool you over 1,000 times? That makes you a complete and utter tool. But the reality to those with the badges of dishonour, you need to listen to this piece. Because this is the real reality of what is going on now. If the cabal got back control, all of you would get nothing. Just like before. You got nothing then, you'll get nothing now. If you went the right way, and you've been shown it, you would have a fighting chance to survive and also a choice. To the clowns who are thinking of World War III to gain control, and let's all follow the Marduk plan to the letter like little sheep. This is your reality. The reality is the directive from the very top of the control structure, aka the Draco, calls for all Illuminati to be killed off. All of you. Yes, you, the illuminated ones, the special ones, with your bogus titles. You're first. Not we, the people. No, you. That's the Draco directive, to wipe out the Illuminati. That's why all the factions are all fighting each other. Remember Shane, the ruiner, who said on a show they're going to be trimming the fat. He told you live on air what they were going to do. They're going to trim the fat because the cabal is too top heavy, too expensive to run, and they don't need you anymore. Now my response to Shane, both privately and on the show, is they won't be trimming the fat. They'll be eating the lean. And what will be left is a few psychopaths who own nothing and who control nothing, and will become completely irrelevant. So all you illuminated ones who think that you're going to be saved and you're going to be one of the 500 million, you're not. You're first to go in the Agenda 21 / Agenda 2030. You. Don't believe me? Go and find out. You're the first to go. That's why they're creating all these cultures, so that you all fight a little bit different, so you all kick off on each other and eliminate each other. And if you eliminate that one, you'll get King of the World or Pindar or something else, or you'll get the code or the keys to the account, except none of them work, do they? None of your keys and none of your codes work, so you try hacking, and that's failed also. Do you not get the message? Because the message is loud and clear. Like us, you have become expendable. Oops. So the top control system and the elimination program does not start with we the people. It won't end with we the people either. Trust me. The first directive is to eliminate all the Illuminati. So your coven people, yes, you at Gaia TV, are lying to you. The parents, the ones that are left, both who are completely insane or unsane, are lying to you also. And the lizard people who have left are also lying to you. And you're that stupid, you're still following their book. You have a choice, a fighting chance. to live your life out in peace, and let's go forward and create a better world free of hideous lizards, bug-eyed bastards, grey aliens, and all kinds of other watchers, tall blondes, tall white, and all this nonsense can all kiss my ass and go away. This planet belongs to humans. It's been designated as so, and you can all suck it up. I know some of you have been calling for an escape route. Fix your mess first, the ones that have called. Fix your mess, remove your dangerous technology, and we'll consider it. Until then, you're stuck with us. And when the people find out who and where you are, you might not like it. The Illuminists need to think again. Like I said, you don't have to believe me. I've known that plan for 4 years. If you're just finding it out, oops. You've been played again, like the fools you all are. Time to get your thinking skull caps on and step down, step out, step forward, and come and help us fix this planet once and for all. You know who to contact if you need further information. We're always available, providing you don't send morons. So we're kind of sick of them, to be quite honest. Right, let's get into some questions and answers. Thomas, if you have time, could you please spend some time explaining what these last couple of documents from Rothschilds are? I read them about 6 months ago, I think. So they're being repeated, or they're just coming to light now. How is it that they do not think they have to cooperate with the only sovereign on the planet at the moment? Because they are part of the dark. I actually think that they're descendants of the Draco. They're ugly enough. All of them. See, the Rothschilds, there's a kind of a misconception, including from their own family, where they think there's some kind of royals. Now, there are royals and there are royals. We'll find out more about that in the future. Well, we did, in essence, with the Kingdom of Manisha. But this particular family are incestuous inbreeders, where they've inserted themselves into royal families and family bloodlines, aided and abetted by the Chinese group, the dragons, the reptilians, with a $20 million loan in 1520. Not 1920, 1520. A $20 million loan the Rothschilds received from the Asian group, all of which are reptilian owned. If you don't believe that, go and listen to the bogus Red Dragon. He admitted it in the interview with Cobra in November of 2015 that the head of the alleged Red Dragon group was a reptilian. And people still listen to that? For those of you who don't know, reptilians are not Draco. Different. neither have done any favours for us. I don't suspect they'll ever change either. So they think they're above the law, and unfortunately we have people in the five-sided building and some of the agencies who also think they're above the law. Otherwise they would have acted by now and removed that filth away from the people altogether. All of you in the Pentagon and the agencies have seen the crimes. You've been shown them over and over again. You were also shown when they raided the American government account in November. Why haven't you arrested them? Now you know that you're part of the first wave of genocide. Maybe you should rethink that. But those documents are complete and utter bullshit. Promising this and promising that for them to stay in control. No thanks, we don't want your control. Period. Was Hurricane Harvey steered and slowed over Texas and Louisiana so the cabal could get the masses to donate some money to the Red Cross? Yep, partly. And also to stretch the emergency teams, in my opinion. So then we'd have to bring in others who were already here. So let's not be given to charities, any of them. When you find out at the root of them, they all have a central system. How is it that we as a collective can develop our abilities to such an extent as to have more influence to combat the forces now in play? Everyone has abilities. Not everyone believes, and therein lies the problem. That's impossible. Or is it that is I'm possible? That's what it comes down to. Would finding material about the curriculum taught in the mystery schools be beneficial? Yes. The original mystery schools. If so, would you know where this information would be found? As I would not trust just googling this theory. You don't think the mystery schools, real mystery schools stuff, are on the internet, do you? It's not. I can't seem to tolerate any type of music for the last 3 months. This only seems to be getting worse, not better. Do you have any idea what that may be about? Or does anyone else have the same issues? It might be frequency. It also depends on what type of music you're listening to as well. You know, there's some music that just, you know, I've got a fairly wide range of music as covered on the show. Yes, the basis of it is the rock music, but there's an awful lot of words in those rock songs that tells you. I was going to play only another one tonight, Heaven and Hell. That's portrayed as being devil worshipping and all that stuff. But if you read the words, it's something different. The sooner you get to the meaning, the sooner you know you are dreaming, is one of the lines. They're telling you that the closer you get to the meaning, the sooner you know that you're dreaming. And another line: the world is full of kings and queens who blind your eyes and steal your dreams. It's heaven and hell. And that's why the heavy rock genre was shut down and classed as demonic. too much truth in those lyrics and those bands in the late 60s and early 70s. What sort of resources would you recommend us to study in order to learn to develop our abilities to annihilate or steer away any of the storms? There's nothing to study apart from you. You won't learn that from books. Anybody that's ever activated their abilities did not learn it from books, did not learn it from the internet. It comes from within. Now, some of it depends on what evolutionary level you're on, which nobody can tell you where you are on that. You will know by how things develop. If you're still battling in your dream time, then you haven't reached sufficient levels to negate it. Because that's the astral realm. Once you get out of the astral realm, you're going onto the mental planes where more of your abilities is activated. The controllers in Kambal have tried to keep us permanently in the astral layer for loosh. That's where a lot of diseases come from. That's where cancer originates from, the lower astral, by people leaving holes in their PSI field. We covered this in the Levershoff show. I think there's a transcript of that somewhere. Go and read it again. But never let anybody tell you how you can develop your own abilities, because they can't. Even people who have them. It's intrinsic just to you. If your own soul is developed to a sufficient level, you will have more abilities. When Miss Manor talks of the 16,500 year agreement with the tribes following the war, was this the end of the Atlantis civilization? Technically, no. Is the Kingdom of Mana affiliated with the Knights Templar? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. This is where it gets muddy. But we did cover it in the show, and we were talking about titles and stuff like that. So we don't ignore the awkward questions. You want to find out who the real Knights Templar are? Go and read Revelation by Svetlana Levershoff. Then you'll know. Ever heard Harvey Assistance? They want people donating clothing and etc. Is this real or part of a scam? No, don't know who they are. I've never heard of them. I assume it's something to do with Hurricane Harvey. I don't know. This phasing in and out, would it be seeing things that only a few can? Yes. I saw an Indian chief leaning up against a tree in front of a Publix as I came through a traffic light. I've seen flashes of a vortex in the water. There's your answer. Will the increase in the budget keep them printing money and still in control? Yes, temporarily. I strongly think theosophy is used as part of the New World Order in order to capture spiritual and philosophical people. Could it be that in the main Illuminati state like the Netherlands, yoga educations are allowed? You can even deduct the study costs from the taxes because of that theosophical part in it. I'm going to be covering, if I get time and we have electricity and a house, I may do an in-depth thing to do with anthropology, theosophy. It all ties in, because I'm rather concerned there's elements in that's fairly new in the alternative media that are connected with Rudolf Steiner and Waldorf schools and teachers, and I don't like it. I don't care who that upsets. There's something to it. That type of program started in the late 1800s, and it was the New Age 1.0. They know ahead of time. This just comes into the looking glass technology, where they can see ahead of time, and then how people play out, and the AI runs the program. If they introduce this, will it dictate people go this way or that way? So all these plans and prophecies were something that they could see ahead of time. Albert Pike, World War 1, 2 and 3, except 3 failed. And this New Age, which was part of a program that was heavily absorbed by Americans in the 60s with the Woodstock, free love, drugs and all that stuff. It was a program. Whether people like that or not, it's the truth. And it was to target the free thinkers. And if those people stepped out of line, remember the events at the school in 68? That's how they dealt with it. So then people were in fear. And when people go in fear, they go into a shell, and it goes underground. But Nixon wrote a directive to target the people known as hippies and the blacks with drugs. Again, don't have to believe me. It's in a document. It's being released. So they used all kinds of osophies and distorted the words, distorted the meanings, distorted the scriptural books to push you into a program. The reality is how you can be spiritual and take drugs. Because if you understand what it does, where it opens your PSI field and allows entities to come in, then you would never take it if you were a true spiritual person. Because a true spiritual person keeps their soul intact. Drugs and alcohol opens it. That's going to piss a few people off, I know it will, but that's the truth. Again, go and look at the Levishoff show. It's all there. Could you elaborate on the supposed fact that ancient Egyptians always depicted the human face in 2D from the one side only with one eye showing, because they couldn't properly depict the human face straight on? Now this is the all-seeing eye stuff right in your face. That's where it comes from. Same people, Horus and all that malarkey. Are the good guys going to take out the harp towers in the Gulf and cut Irma down to zero? At this point it's looking unlikely, but you never know. Somebody sent me a population chart. I've seen that for 2025, and I think America's down to something like 30 million or something ridiculous. Ignore that bullshit. Another one on the Rothschilds keepers' reasons for the loss of their keepership and the Galactic Council. Yeah, their Galactic Council is the Galactic Council of Liars. We're not interested in their Galactic Council. Where are we next? What time is it? The Earth has been under an iron fist for so many thousands of years. I'm interested in when and why the tide turned. It's not very clear whether that's when it started or when it ended. If it ended, the tide turned is because the people started to wake up. The ignorance and zombified state started to collapse. It's really collapsing now. And people got fed up of the tyranny. But the other reality is the cabal found out that they were being lied to on a massive scale, and a lot of them decided to change the other way. This is why I keep repeating the line from the 100 series. Where are all the good guys? Their answer is, there is none. They had to create them. And that series, in essence, covers our Earth history. Where the current version of human came from. They only used 100, there was a lot more. And it also covers the AI and the battling tribes of people, both on the surface and underground. They portrayed as humans, but they're not. So the tide kind of turned in our lifetime. It's turned a lot more in the last 5 years. And in essence, in under a decade, we've brought a 16,500 year control system to its knees. The head's not removed yet, but it will be. How did we start to get traction on regaining control of our own lives and future? Again, it was just a few who created the need for a better path and a better way. But it doesn't need just the few, it needs the many, and it doesn't need necessarily a group think. Are you the person who asked the question? Have you regained control of your own life and future? Or are you waiting on somebody else? Because even in this mad world, you can still have control of your own life and your own future to a certain point. Was alien assistance critical? It's not the key component. But yes, they levelled the playing field. They can't assist here because it's not in their role to do that. It's up to us to fix our mess. No advanced extraterrestrial group worth its salt will interfere with the problems of the same species. They'll interfere if somebody comes in that is not inherent to this planet necessarily and is cheating. So that's why the Draco are gone. That's why a lot of the others have been told to leave. That's why a lot of the others have been told to fix their mess. That's why Cobra's here. He was on behalf of the Procyon. Or was it Alcyon? Procyon, I think. I always get those two mixed up. They were the guardians of this planet and sold us out for tech.
Alcyon.
The Alcyon. Thank you. But even he seems to have lost his way recently. And the blue chicken cult. Did key military people switch sides? Yeah. We created the path of good, and they chose to follow. You talk about loss of access to the collateral accounts, but how did we actually take it back? Well, that's already been covered in the previous show. They had the accounts removed from accessing them back in 2007, which is why we had a crash in 2008 and why we're still in recession in 2017. And if they don't get their asses into gear, we'll be swinging the lead for another year. Only things will get a lot worse. Not only for us, but for them also, because they have nothing. I doubt it was a small group of people waving Aboriginal law books at them. I'm just amazed that we were actually able to do what you were describing without simply getting squashed yet again, both physically and financially, because you have no belief. Because basically that's what took place. A small group of people decided it had enough. We found out about the treaty and the loophole in it and enacted it. It's not just the cabal who are clever. To the person who asked the question, what you're doing is thinking little me. And they're oh so big and oh so powerful, when all their power is because we provide the platform, including yourself. Stop thinking little me, because we're not little me. We never were. Step out of the program and step out of the matrix. The only power on this planet is we the people. That is why in the Genesis scripture I read out earlier, they changed the languages to stop us communicating. Why? because they were frightened of us. Even with all the minimal technology, we were far more creative than they'll ever be. So they started interfering, messing with genetics, creating bogus lines on a piece of paper called borders, different countries, different cultures, different religions, all bogus. But we all fell for it. Well, most of us did anyway. Please stop the little me, because we're not the little me. Given that almost all who are going to wake up have done so, what purpose does leaving the psychopaths loose to cause more death and destruction serve? I'm not so sure that they will be left running loose once their numbers are dwindled. You heard the directive I gave earlier. And it is true. I was aware of it 3-4 years ago. They're going to wipe out the Illuminati first before us. So they're more expendable than we are. So the Illuminati need to get off their self-imposed high horse and join us commoners, because we have the power to fix them and the problem. You don't, clearly. Are the new weapon machines mentioned last week controlled by the white hats, or are we facing another tragedy? Well, I think I covered that earlier. There's something to ponder that may kind of rock a few. But we've been covering certain groups that we thought were good, certain people that we thought were good, and turned out they were not. Now the white hats were running around the internet, giving all kinds of intel out, and some of it was rather good. But that's the hook. What many people miss is why they're called white hats. Is there any other particular racist organisation that wears white hats? Because it's the same people. Are the chakras artificial implants to steal your light? I don't know the answer to that question. It's possible. It could be the implants attached to the chakras, not necessarily the chakras being artificial. But I don't really know the answer. That's the best I can give you. Are the 12 tribes of Israel the real controllers? No. Is the universe expanding or static? It's definitely not static, it is expanding. Why? Because consciousness is expanding. Just like the earth is expanding because of the consciousness of the people. Oops. So to the guy who asked the questions earlier, I'm not particularly picking on you, but that line of questioning was so demeaning to we the people and our abilities and powers to overcome against all odds. Think about it. The planet expands because of the consciousness of the people. The universe accordingly around it. Still think we're just little old me? With no abilities, no power, no nothing. Please stop it. Can you change a baby's sex while in the womb? I've no doubt they've got some sort of concoction. I can't say definitively, but it is possible, I suppose. They've been messing with all kinds. I'll leave that to the last. Alex Jones is getting increasingly futuristic, if it is Alex Jones. Please put a picture of Alex Jones from 5 years ago and one from now. You may see something rather different. Anyway, the entity known as Jones. As the only way I can glom together all his Agenda 2030 ET and other being type info, like the first hour of yesterday's show, how nano AI from chemtrails will be able to take over human brains. Well, it's nothing new. We've been covering that over a long period of time. Randy covered that about 5 or 6 years ago, if memory serves me correctly, so he's only parroting somebody else's info. Do you ever tune in to see what he's spewing, Thomas? No, I don't. He has nothing valid to offer, in my opinion. Each to their own. Normally I yawn, but last night, September the 6th, I made my jaw drop a few times. What percentage do you think is on the mark? And I have got time to, and I can't tolerate listening to Jones either. I couldn't stomach listening to a whole hour or a whole 5 minutes of him, for that matter. Jones's tech doesn't get interfered with. Go figure. That's what happens when you get $3 million in advertisement revenue. But my favourite dude to listen to, Paul Joseph Watson, has been so censored on YouTube he's left now. Yet there's a lot getting shut down. Maybe we'll find an alternative platform and ditch YouTube and their Google AI machines. So I appreciate an op-ed from you, if not tonight, sometime, unless it makes you want to spew another way. Literally, sorry. I just can't tolerate Jones. He's COINTELPRO. Right out of Stratford. With a Mossad agent wife. Or ex-wife now. These two questions probably go together. Why are the elite trying to kill off the divine feminine? They're not actually. They've killed off the masculine. And I'll explain why in this next question, which will be the last. Thomas, you've let on that the root of our society is matriarchal based. Yes, it is. And that many women of the past preferred mates of ETs over a common human male. Yet that's in the scriptures, in more than one scripture. Catherine the Great, Cleopatra, and so forth. This seems so clear with the destruction and attack of the father figure in today's family. Can you affirm that this was in fact generated by female humans or ETs as a means of conquering humanity? Well, it's, along with religion, it's one of the biggest lies ever. And again, it plays into this Steiner, Waldorf anthropology study of diversion over the New Age group. Blavatsky is another one, which then led into Crowley and all the other fun and games that followed, OTO and Hermetic, Golden Dawn, and it just goes on and on. But the reality is 9 of the last 10 parents were females. The last 2 are both female. 4 of the last 5, and the last 2 are female. Most of the lead coven members, including one very prominent one in England, are females. Now, if the scripture is right, and the females of the time, human females, preferred to go with the gods and declared to wipe out human, then that kind of explains some of the guilt from the female aspect. And also the cover-up. But I was talking to Chloe the other day. I notice things, perhaps more than others. I observe a lot more. But I was standing in doing my job, and we've got a number of hotel rooms that I have to look after or maintain. And there was a long queue. It was check-in time. And there was probably about 5 or 6 families before me. And they all approached the desk, and every one of them, the female spoke and not the male. 30, 40 years ago, it was the other way round. And it's only a slight thing, but it's the change where the female is pushed forward and the male stays quiet in the background. A couple of males tried to interject, and the hand went out. I noticed it quite clearly, and it's the female shutting the male down. Now, I'm not saying this applies to all relationships, but now I've mentioned it, you will notice it. Whenever somebody was going into a consumer setting, it used to be the male who did all the talking, or the contracts, or the agreements. It's flipped in our lifetime. The consumerism is done by 81% of all expenditures is by females. So they control the finance, which again is a flip from the 60s back. You look at the advertisements and it's all about female issues, but ignore the male issues. When in essence the male issues need to be addressed more than the females, because women will discuss if they've got an itch in unmentionable places to each other and feel comfortable doing that. But you won't get many men discussing between themselves that they've got itchy balls. It's just a no-no. And so the male really needs those type of things need to be pushed forward more, so it gives the males more confidence to talk to each other. It's like mastitis. People think that's a female thing. Well, no, actually, males can get it as well. But that gets ignored. And there's been a full-on change at the height of the control system of females taking the dominant role over the male. In other words, the illusion is no longer there. The illusion that the male had the power, when it was always the string pullers were always the females. And I think it's clear to most people now the attack of the father figure because that's where you break the family down. It breaks the family down. We said it. There was in the last show with John Bryan on Sunday, where there was the joke in Liverpool: "What do you want for Christmas? A father." Yes, it was funny, but it's also very, very sad, because there was vast regions of the poverty-stricken parts of Liverpool where the kids had no father. And this is a deliberate programme. This is now why they're promoting the gay and lesbian thing. If you want to be that, it's fine by me. But just don't turn it into a programme where you are more important than anybody else. It's like the Black Lives Matter. No, all lives matter. I'm sorry, but it does. These people are being played. The gay and lesbian groups, they're being played because it's agenda driven. It's nothing to do with fair rights for gay people. They're not interested in gay people. They're not interested in black people. They're not interested in native people. They're only interested in what they can get out of you. The woman who was fighting for female rights, what was her name? Greer, the Australian woman, now regrets doing that because she's seen the damage it's done. She thought she was fighting for female fairness, when in reality they were just marrying them into the work culture. So they had the higher portion of the populace, which is the females, pay taxes, which going back to the 60s and before, it was more the male role. Remember when you just had the father working and that fed the whole family? Now both are working and the eldest children, and there's still not enough. And we think that's acceptable. Well, no, it's not actually. So, it's a programme that's being played on us that comes into the New Age stuff, the divine feminine and all that stuff, when we've already got it. And it's not worked out too well, has it? Do you think it'll be any better as a matriarchal society? No. What we need is what we've needed, not only on this planet, but throughout the universe. Balance. All of us in our lifetimes, have been male and female. So, just because I'm male and saying it's wrong, we're in a matriarchal society, I'm not playing the divide and conquer, because in previous lifetime I was likely a female, and maybe one of the controllers. Who knows? One over the other has gone on for far too long, because it leads to one controlling the other. Just simple divide and conquer. So when it becomes a balanced thing, 45-55, it's that metronome again. So the swing is not too much to pull back to the centre. Then we have the perfect system. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. I'll read that next week. A lot to take in. Some things to be concerned with. But that's the news as it is. Largely, their bigger plans have failed. We will always live to fight another day, no matter what happens in the coming 48 to 72 hours. I will come out swinging as they won't knock me down. They've tried it many, many times, and it just makes me stronger. Good luck with that. So, stay safe, everyone. Keep your eyes open, keep watching, keep listening. There's a lot going on. And stay calm. You must stay calm. Even while all around you is losing it. And just stand your ground, as you'll see them all fall. And they will. So I'm going to end with a piece that was sent to me by one of the people that were on An Evening with Thomas. A hero's journey begins with a process of separation or alienation from tribe, following by a series of difficult challenges that the hero must meet alone. The journey culminates into a descent into the abyss of self-doubt and a loss of faith in the divine, but then results in a vital transformation and a renewal of trust, which in turn leads to a revelation of some new knowledge, insight, or wisdom. When you become conscious of your contract as opposed to living it in an unconscious way, you go through a painful process of severance. This is what's happening now, because you are no longer part of the tribal mind. Right. I'll be back next Thursday. Electricity and 4 walls and roof withstanding. There'll be no An Evening with Thomas on Sunday, which will disappoint you, some of you, but we'll be hunkered down. We'll be okay. I know many of you are worrying about the two of us, but we'll be okay. I'm not too sure about the houses, but they can be rebuilt. But thanks for all your concern, and thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, stay prepared, and never let anyone put you in fear. My name's Thomas Williams, and given the things that are going on here, I thought this was appropriate. Bye for now.